Federation versus Freedom by Babasaheb Ambedkar. 6.3 Part 6. The provision which existed in the diarchical constitution of the provinces and which has been omitted from the federal constitution relates to the financing of the reserved subjects. Section 72D of the old Act of 1919 and Section 33 and 34 of the present Act may be usefully compared in this connection. Section 72D subsection 2 reads as follows. The estimates of annual expenditure and revenue of the province shall be laid in the form of a statement before the council in each year, and the proposals of the local government for the appropriation of provincial revenues and other monies in any year shall be submitted to the vote of the council in the form of demands for grants. The council may assent or refuse its assent to a demand, or may reduce the amount therein referred to, either by a reduction of any of the items of expenditure of which the grant is composed. Compare with this Section 34 of the present Act of 1935. Section 1 of Section 34 reads as follows. So much of the estimates of expenditure as relates to expenditure charged upon the revenues of the Federation shall not be submitted to the vote of the legislature, but nothing in this subsection shall be construed as preventing the discussion in either chamber of the legislature of any of these estimates other than estimates relating to expenditure referring to in paragraph A or paragraph F of subsection 3 or section 33. According to section 33, expenditure charged on the revenues of the Federation includes expenditure on the reserved subjects. On a comparison between the provisions of the two acts, it is clear that under the old act, no distinctions were made by section 72D between transferred and reserved subjects, so far as the powers of the legislature in regard to the granting of supplies were concerned, and the expenditure on reserved subjects was not only open to discussion but was also the subject to the vote of the legislature. Under the provisions of Section 34 of the new Act, the federal legislature can only discuss the expenditure on the reserved subjects but cannot vote upon it. This is a very important distinction. Under the old constitution, even the reserved subjects were amenable to the financial powers of the legislature. Under the present constitution, they are independent of the financial powers of the federal legislature. It is true that in the provincial constitution, the vote of the legislature with regard to expenditure on reserved subjects was not final. That under a proviso to section 72D, the governor was given the power, in relation to any such demand, to act as if it had been assented to, notwithstanding the withholding of such assent or the reduction of the amount by the legislature if the demand relates to reserved subject, and the governor certifies that the expenditure provided for by the demand is essential to the discharge by responsibility for the subject. It is also true that in the Government of India Act 1935, the amount of expenditure on reserved subjects is fixed to 42 crores. But the same difference exists, namely that under the old constitution the reserved subjects were amenable to the financial control of the legislature, while in the new they are not. This difference is not a small one. The power to grant supplies is the most effective mode of enforcing the responsibility of the executive. The power of certification might have deprived the legislature of control of the reserved subjects, but it did not altogether destroy its influence. Under the present constitution, the legislature has not only no control over reserved subjects, but it also cannot have any influence over them. There can therefore be no doubt that there were more responsibility in the diarchy in the old provincial constitution than there is in this diarchy in the federation. The end.